Hey guys, what's going on? You are tuned into another episode on the Woman Who Roars series. And today we are interviewing Julissa Prado, who is the CEO and founder of Rizos Curls. So you know your girl had to come through with the mega curls today because it's only right. And I'm so excited to speak with her because she has a really incredible story. So you guys are in for a true treat. So make sure to stay tuned to the interview in its entirety so you can get all the gems that she is going to drop. And I see that she requested to hop in the live, so I'm just going to accept her so we can get this party started. All right, that we are waiting for our connection. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. Thank you for tuning in. Hey mama,
Hi, how are you?
I am good.
Can you hear me? Let me see.
I can hear you and I can see you and those gorgeous curls.
Oh, you too. Your hair looks amazing.
I said, you know what? If I'm talking to Julissa, I gotta get the curls right. You know what I mean?
I love the color. The highlights are really radiant and glowing.
Thank you. Shout out to my hairstylist. So much.
Oh my God, it's so
voluminous. How are you? You're out in Cali, right?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. Like, our offices, everything's here. So, yeah, my family.
Is everybody okay? Are you doing okay?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of my parents and a lot of my family, they have small businesses, like mostly restaurants. So that's like my dad and his brothers, like all of their passion is food. Mm-hmm. So they've been able to, kind of stay open with takeout orders and stuff. So everyone's hanging in there, trying to do the best.
Good. So that means you're also eating good, I assume.
Yeah, I know I'm always eating good. That's why I love LA. Like, a part of me is like, I could never leave LA because do y'all know how much good food I have around here at my disposal?
LA does have some good food. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm born and raised in New York, so it's kind of, we got the good food too.
Oh, y'all have
and
lots of another level of gourmet food, but my food is just free because it's my family. You know what
exactly. I mean? So you winning. You're winning, like way over me.
But yeah, no, New York has like another level of just really really amazing restaurants and chefs and like cuisines and experiences.
Yes, it is. I love.
I always wanted to live in New York at some point. I was always like, I want to live in New York one day.
Really? That's
always.
Interesting.
Always. Like when I was a little girl, like I would like always, whenever we would like play around and like, who are you? I would be like, oh, I'm Julissa from the Bronx. And I'm like, never even had been on a plane. Like I was like this little like LA hood girl that literally had never like been outside of her like vecindario, bro. Like
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I want to be from New York.
Yeah, that's J-Lo. We got to thank J-Lo for that.
Yeah.
She just influenced the culture that everybody felt like they wanted to be from the Bronx, from New York. Yeah. And the funny story is literally every time I meet someone, they always think I'm from the Bronx. But I grew up in Queens. But I guess, Latina curls. They're like, oh, are you from the Bronx?
Yeah,
I'm from Queens, so I totally get it.
When I think about Queens, I think about like a lot of people being able to salsa dance or like Colombian food. I feel like that's like the stereotype of like
there's a large Colombian community for sure. Yeah. Yes. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk with you because I've been following your journey and story. And of course, the first thing that attracted me to you was your curls, and I was like, oh, fellow curl. But also because you're Latina. And what was really interesting and inspiring, and I think just dope about your story, is that you run $1 million business that is self-funded. Yeah. And it's also run with you and your family, which I think is super unique and speaks to our culture and really speaks to the magic that happens at Rizos Curls. So can you talk a little bit about the experience of self-funding your own business and also working with your family?
Yeah, I think that being self-funded is definitely a big decision to make when you're starting a business. Of you have to understand your own finances, like how much money you're gonna need, and whether or not like it's realistic for you to be able to how far you can go with that option being realistic. And luckily for me, I had been saving for a long time, and I had a very comfortable corporate job that was like so great and with Nestle. So I was kind of like balancing both. So my corporate full-time job was the one that was funding. It was like, that was my investor, you know, per se, but it was, you know, your own salary. So I was really lucky in that. And the reason why I decided I wanted to be self-funded was because I felt like a lot of investors might understand like the curls part of my business, but not the community or culture part, which were just as important to me as the curls part.
Right.
So, so yeah, and I think that also I think that I saw so many talents from my family and the people around me. I wanted to also be able to incorporate that regardless of their experience, regardless of their background, into my business. And yeah, like I wanted to be able to, you know, if my cousin did this, my cousin did that, like I wanted everyone to be able to be a part of this and, you know, work with my family pretty much because they are what makes me happy. So
yeah. And I love that you guys have figured out, okay, what are her strengths? What does he do really well? And really placing people in strategic roles so that the business is amplified versus, you know, putting somebody in a role where they're probably not a good fit. So did you know those fits already, or was that kind of like a training trial and error?
Yeah, I think that there's so much raw talent in these like communities of color, especially in places where kids may not have had the experiences or opportunities to allow them to, you know, really get professional training in certain things. But like naturally you will see so many people that are just really true creatives and are even able to flourish no matter what. And like, for example, my cousin Vanessa is one of them, the one that did the drawing on my bottle and does all of our art. You know, she's never taken like one art class in her life. And this girl you can put her up there with anybody else, like all of our graphics, like everything she has been able to create. Like she just got Wi-Fi in her house, like maximum 2 years ago, you know, like owned her first laptop, like literally like 3 years ago, you know? So it's like, it was completely just like this like hood raw talent. And, I think that for a lot of my family, we kind of like didn't even know what they were fully capable of until we put them in a situation and gave them the tools. And I think that goes for so many people in our community. Like you can't underestimate anybody because like so many people are able to create such bigger things. Yeah, and I think as far as like the point that you said of making sure that people are doing what they're truly good at and like maximizing that, I think it's so important. And I feel like that's something that we don't just like assign somebody something and that's where they stay forever. It's something that we're like constantly revisiting. So very recently, like you know, literally a few weeks ago, we did a whole movement again. Like we went to everybody and we're like, okay, it's like, do you think that you might like this better, or you might be better at this? And we literally moved people around. Like we found out that somebody that was doing marketing is actually really, really good and has so much knowledge in like fulfillment and shipping operational stuff. And we're like, whoa, who would have known that? And so, you know what I'm saying? Like people grow and people change. And I think expecting somebody to be doing the same type of being in the same place for a long time just because that's what they were good at a year or two ago is unfair to them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's all about, you know, keeping people happy also where they work, because at any time they could be like, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, this isn't cute. I want to go somewhere else. And so a leader, right, has to spend a lot of time in making sure that their people are also happy and that they are performing at their best and their highest potential because they're in a role that means something to them, right? And they're actually good at. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
So I want to go back to the self-funding piece because I know you just moved into a new warehouse. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I saw the tour. It looks beautiful. So tell me, did you not take out a loan to buy that warehouse? Was that strictly through your sales that came in? Because I think there's some misconceptions around when people say they self-fund, and what does that mean when you're ready to actually expand?
Yeah, so I definitely like started my line of credit when I first started the business. Like even with that line of credit, like even if I didn't take out that money right away, I had it there waiting just in case. So like just because you're self-funded, it doesn't mean that you're not planning other sources of revenue. I mean of money coming in, you know, like there's grants, there's so many different ways or loan options that you can take. Like being self-funded just means that you're not taking money from somebody else that wants equity in your company. It just means like you're the complete 100%, you know, owner, and you're funding however it is that you're able to get funding, but in your own name.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I definitely think that, you know, people should, you know, if they need to, like, look at plan B, look at plan C. If you're able to get a line of credit, like, have that there. It's not going to hurt you. And if you don't use it, oh, great. But if you do need it, you can, you know, use that money right away. So, right. So yeah, I think for us, like, another priority is that we prioritize, we don't, how do I say this? Like, everything that we do has to have an ROI as far as like our products and a lot of like our marketing, etc. You know, like I think sometimes brands prioritize brand awareness or market share, but they are literally have higher costs than they have sales. Which for that business model, I feel like is so old and kind of, I don't understand how it's sustainable. Like till this day, you look at like Uber, you look at Casper mattresses, you look at so many Glossier, so many huge billion even dollar brands that in their financial report would literally say that they never intend to ever be profitable. That their money is like, that they're at that rate, they're literally performing at a loss and have always performed at a loss. And the cost for them to sell something for $20 is actually like $40. Like,
crazy. Right.
What? And literally their money, like, you know, them, you know, making money and like, you know, benefiting from that situation is so dependent on somebody actually paying that much for their valuation, you know? Right. And seeing like you know, seeing a value in whatever revenue despite the high costs.
Yeah.
And I feel like almost like it's easy to make money when you have money. Like I feel like if I had $30 to sell you something for $20, I could do that. Like, you know, that, but what's hard is like sell you something for $20, but I only have $5 to invest in that. So I think that definitely being self-funded is something that's very challenging, and it requires a lot of extra creativity and a lot of extra work.
But I think one of the great things that comes with self-funding is not having to answer to any investors and really being able to construe the fabric of your company, really decide what the DNA is going to be, you know, decide the culture, decide how you're going to market, where you're going to speak, what are you going to choose not to speak on, etc., because you have complete ownership over that type of decision making.
100%. I think that a lot of times they don't see, unless they see the ROI on every single action that you're doing, like they might not see the full picture of like how that can lead to something more later, or that might lead to a certain kind of like brand loyalty from your customers. And yeah, they don't see that.
Yeah. So did you always see yourself as a CEO? Because the CEO is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you've never done it before, if you're not from a family of, you know, first of all, that can invest in your business, but also that can teach you kind of like what it takes to run $1 million plus business. You know, how have you dealt with that? Did you take additional training? Did you have to go through your own development? How do you manage that type of pressure and responsibility?
Yeah. So luckily, for me, a lot of times people like, they undervalue like being prepared and like preparing yourself and investing in yourself and your own knowledge, whether that's with like your own books, your own learnings on YouTube. They think like, oh, I can just wake up and know everything, and my journey of learning ends, and I just know everything today. Like, absolutely not. I think that I will not grow and my business will not grow unless I'm learning new things and I'm growing every step of the way, and I'm learning better ways to run my business and, you know, figure out new things. And I think for me, you know, everybody's different. I'm not saying that for everyone, you know, this path is necessary, that school is necessary. But for me, especially coming from my background, where like both my parents, they never went to school. They didn't even know English. Like, they're legit first generation. Like, they don't, you know, I had no example of anybody that even was, you know, educated in, you know, in more than 3 years of their school life, you know. My mom didn't even know how to read and write for a long time. Like, so when you come from that, to me, I'm like, I needed education. Education is what allowed me to open my mind and learned so many things that for some people, they learned it from their parents in middle school and high school. It was like normal. And for me, it's like, we didn't even speak the same language there. Like, there was no, you can't compare apples to apples. So I'm very, very educated when it comes to business. Like, I went to UCLA for undergrad. I got my master's in business from Wake Forest. While I was in grad school, I interned for PepsiCo, and then right out of grad school, I worked for Nestle, the world's largest food company, where I had various different roles. I was like one of the only people of color, only one of the only people under like 50 years old, one of the only females, like in every single division and industry that I was in. And even in those environments, in that corporate world, like, I was killing it. Like, I was implementing everything that I learned from school, from my life, from, you know, from my experiences, and I was putting into practice. It was almost like my practice for my own business. I was right out of grad school for Nestle. I was managing a team of almost 13 sales reps. And it was over like a $30 million business that I was managing for their like Coffee Mate, Nesquik, dryers, Haagen-Dazs business, DiGiorno, whatever. And you know, like, it was like sink or swim. Like, it was me. Like, literally, I had an amazing opportunity to practice being a leader.
And you got paid. You got paid to practice.
And I was getting paid big bucks. Like,
and benefits.
And bomb benefits. Exactly. And like, that for me, it was so hard to leave that corporate environment. Cause like, according to my parents' eyes, like, I already made it. They're like, girl, you're getting paid. You're so young and you're getting paid 6 figures out of school, and they're paying for your car, your insurance, your internet. Like, these big companies have money to, you know, to treat their employees well with. So I had a great situation. And I was very, very lucky and blessed that I got to learn from literally the world's largest food company. They had, within Nestle, they had a Nestle University where I literally went and took negotiation training. I took sales training. I took so many of these trainings from some of the world's like best business people, some of the brightest minds. So it's like, I'm not, a lot of the time when I'm like giving advice, especially business advice, I'm not just talking about my business that's like, oh, just reached $1 million. No, I'm talking about me learning from the world's largest food company that has like 30+ billion-dollar brands, and they're the ones that taught me this knowledge. So that I'm now implementing into my business, and it worked, and now I'm sharing it with other people because I've already practiced it twice and it already worked for me.
So through this journey, have you experienced imposter syndrome? And for those who don't know, because sometimes people are not familiar with the term, so imposter syndrome is where you feel like, even though you worked your ass off to be in a room, you still feel like you don't belong. And that could be for a number of reasons, because you're the only woman, because you're the only Latina, because you're the youngest, whatever it is, you just feel like an imposter in that space. So have you experienced this? And if so, how have you managed it and gotten through it?
Yeah. So I feel like in my life, I had to get very comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I had to get very comfortable with always having that feeling of imposter syndrome. And that's why like my motto growing up was always fake it till you make it, because it literally, my entire life was that feeling. My entire life was like me being in places where I felt like I didn't belong, where I would walk into this honors class and, you know, I barely just learned English like the year before. And the teacher is like, and I'm the only kid that's not white or Asian in the room. And the teacher's like, you're in the wrong room. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, you know, and then they're like, go to the office. You're not supposed to be here. And I'm like, okay. Like, you know, and then finally that's your classroom and that's your first day. Like, okay. Yeah. Or just, it was always like my entire life I've been in situations that everybody in the room is underestimating me. Everybody in the room already decided what I am, what category to put me in, already told me like I wasn't going to make it. So for me, something that my mom would always tell me is, even if you don't feel like you belong, if you don't feel like you're smart enough, you're the best actor. She would always tell me this, like, because I would always like plays for my family, and like I was always like really outgoing and like would perform for them. Yeah. She would always, like, ever since I was a little girl in those situations, she would look at me and say, there is nobody that's a better actress than you. You are the best actress I've ever met. If you feel like you don't belong and you're not smart enough, you better act. You're such a good actress. You act like you are smart enough. You are going to play the best acting role of a smart woman. I'll be like, yeah, I am a really good actress. You're right. Like, yeah, and whatever. So she would be like, you fake it. You do your best role of the smart girl. So I would literally go into so many of these rooms and I felt like I was like conning everybody, like my whole life. Like even now that I'm like a freaking CEO of my company and I've already proved myself like so many times, every room I go into, I go back to that voice. Like I go back to that, like, okay, I'm really uncomfortable here. Like, I feel like, oh my God, it's this room full of like these, you know, super executives of this big retail company. And I'm like, oh no, I'm a really good actress. My mom, I know this. I've always been a good actress my whole life. I'm going to play the role of the best CEO, the best business person. So, okay, and scene, go. And so like, I think for me, that's literally what I would always do. And it's imposter syndrome because I still don't have it in me to just be that confident and not be able to completely throw it off. So instead I did the next best thing, which is I faked it. I faked the confidence and I faked it, and it worked because other people believed me. And when other people believed me, then I started, you know, the whole time I was doing it, it was me. It wasn't even the acting. You know, I really played the role. Yeah. But it was like, so do you think there's like
a threshold you need to meet before you're able to like be like the deuces to imposter syndrome? Right. Is it like a certain level you feel like you need to get to?
I think for everybody is different. I think it's like, it's part of your own self journey. It's part of your own, you know, self-love journey, self-awareness. Yeah. I don't know what it takes. I'm sure it's different for so many people. Like, I'm sure there's like little girls in elementary school that already, you know, was able to knock out imposter syndrome and own it and take up space. But I feel like I'm constantly on this journey, and that's part of why Conceited 2020. I don't know if you saw any of our posts about Conceited 2020.
I haven't seen those.
Yeah, so I started this challenge in 2019.
Oh, wait, did I see it? I might have seen it.
You might have, yeah. So in 2019, I started this like challenge where I was saying like, all right, y'all, like 2020 is gonna be our year, and we're starting Conceited 2020. Like Conceited 2020 pretty much represented, it was a challenge to everybody to do all the work in 2019 that you need to do in order to step into 2020 as the best version of yourself, so that you can finally feel comfortable taking up the space that you deserve, demanding the respect, demanding to be treated in the way that you deserve, demanding like all of the blessings that you always wanted. And right now, 2019 is when we do the work, whether it's with your health journey, whether it's with you know, your organization, whether it's, you know, various different things. And for me, one of the things was like doing my bed every morning. One of the things was like you know, cooking at least one meal a week. One of the things was like working out and getting in shape. You know, so it was like, it can be such a variety of different things because that looks differently for everybody. But for me, it was like that version of me that I'm like, that is my role model. Like, I'm not gonna keep pushing it off to like do it some other time. No, I'm gonna become her today and I'm gonna do the work. And I have 6 months to do it because 2020, I'm walking in as that version that does not take all the, you know, disrespect or whatever I had gone through. Nah.
I love that.
Higher standards. And we even made gifts. We had gifts that said higher standards 2020. We were saying like, and we had this like little funny video where it was like, this guy was like calling me 2019 and he was like, not good for me. And then when he called me in 2020, I had already blocked him and it was like, he answered and he's like, this number has been disconnected. And I'm just like,
I love it. Sorry, boo. I moved on. So tell me, what is it that you love the most about the work that you do? And what is it that frustrates you the most?
Wow. Okay. I would say what frustrates me the most is when there's certain procedures and processes and things that are literally there to just keep people out and are divisive. Like certain things that I'm trying to achieve. Maybe if I'm trying to like work with a certain retailer or I'm trying to enter into a certain mainstream place and a certain media that like, you know, I think what I struggle with the most is like being seen as a mainstream person and a mainstream brand and not just being seen as like your little category that's only for this small audience.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of like a privilege that like white people have, in that when they do something, it's viewed as normal and mainstream and already for everybody. But
right.
when a person of color does something, it's seen as a Latino movie, a Black movie, a Black book, you know, it's already like funneled into a one specific category.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not viewed as normal. It's seen as niche or cultural, whatever the thing is. And I think that especially with Latinos, like, you try to tell me we're not mainstream. Like, what? Do you listen to mainstream music? Look at like every aspect of our culture. We are showing up and setting trends, and we've been doing this. Our food, our music, every part of our culture is mainstream. Like, why can't our businesses, like, why can't the diversity that y'all want to put so hard on your ads to target us and take our money, why can't that diversity also be seen behind the scenes? Like, why can't y'all's processes be reanalyzed and to understand why only these companies that literally get no profit but have so many investors, so they're able to spend more than they make, they're the only ones that are able to assess and be there? Like, why are your processes so hindering that no indie brand, no self-funded brand, no diverse brand can enter? And I think that once we reanalyze that whole system that has been perpetuating this like institutionalized racism and keeping and segregating people and keeping certain people out, until then we can really talk about having true diversity, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what do you think is going to launch that? Like, who has to make that shift? How is that going to change?
I think that is like part of one of the things that I feel like is why I'm here and like why things have gone well for me, because there's been certain things that I've done, like there's been so many things that I've done in mainstream, whether it's like I'm working with somebody and I'll see a lot of difficulties, right? Maybe we're the first person online that they've sold with that we're considered a multicultural brand, right? And they've never worked with somebody, surprisingly, it's 2020, 2019, but y'all never were, okay, that's kind of weird, but whatever, we can, whatever. And they're right away, it's like, you're seeing a lot of pushback from them. You're seeing a lot of these little comments of like, well, your demographic is very price sensitive. And then you kind of have to push back, like, can you show me the data? Because other than racism, I don't see any data that backs that up.
Right, and that doesn't stop you from marketing to our community.
Yeah, exactly. So then once they have that first experience, with a brand and somebody that looks like you, it's like it changes their whole perspective, and it starts having them like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. This goes against all of my previous stereotypes about you and brands that look like you. And they see the power of our community. They see how valuable this, like, us as creatives, us as founders, us as innovators is. And they realize like they can't capture that kind of loyalty from customers unless they bring us into the table. So I think like doing that, there's been so many situations where like I've done that, and then I'll see them reach out to like other Latina founders, like other people that, you know, are kind of the same background as me. And I'm like, that's why I did it. Like, that is why it was worth all that trouble. That is why like I had to put up with all those headaches and kind of like, you know, do that, is because it opened those doors for so many other people. So all it takes is one. I think as soon as one gets through, that's when more can, they have to leave that door open for other people to come in.
Right, because we're going to be pounding on it. So so did you find that you needed to do that with Target, because now your products are in Target?
Yeah, so Target is a different like retailer that was one of the retailers that I really wanted to be a part, like I really wanted to be in, because compared Target, I wanted Target to be my first real retail partner for in-store, because like other ones that I had seen and interacted with in the past, I feel like did not prioritize diversity the way that Target had shown up and prioritized it. Like me as a customer, like I had seen how they literally were the industry leader for the textured section, you know, allowing Black founders to sell their brands there and investing in them and seeing their value and expanding their sections and making them bigger and bigger. So for me, I respected that, and I thought that was really beautiful. And so that was the reason why I wanted them to be our first like in-store large retailer.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you know, opening the door so others can enter that door. So that means that competition is heightened, especially in the curly hair space. There's been a lot of people who have entered the market, of color, of non-color. Yeah. So I want to know, what does that mean to you when you see this immense competition entering your market, and how do you respond? And the reason why I'm asking is because the Female Collaborative is a nonprofit that I founded, and we're all about bringing dope-ass women together who all have value and resources all on their own, and putting them in rooms so that they can collaborate and make magic, make money, create legacy together. And I find that some people handle competition in a way where it's a threat, and other people see competition as an opportunity to collaborate. So how are you handling that now that so many folks, especially Latinas, are entering the curly hair space?
Yeah, I think that there's like a big difference between like copying and like competing. So I feel like if everybody's being creative and like entering the space in a way where, you know, they're not like stealing formulas, or they're not like outwardly, you know, doing things that are just not ethical, like, but you're creating your own path and your own journey and being creative in your own realm. Like, there is so much of like you know, power to that, and I think that's amazing. I applaud that. Like, if you are creating your own road, paving it, and creating opportunities for other people, and you know, showing your creativity and, you know, doing it that way, power to you. I think that if anything, those kind of things are going to elevate all of us together and going to grow the entire category. So I definitely do value, like, you know, other people that are being original and doing things the right way. But I feel like there could be situations where people are being deceitful or lying, or there's like so many other things, whether it's lying to their customers, using ingredients that are not good, but literally bamboozling people into thinking they are, saying that they're self-funded, but they're not. And then they have like all of these like big investors behind the scenes and all these things that they're not even like the majority owner of their own company. Like there's just so many things that happen that it's like frustrating.
Yeah.
But I feel like if it's somebody else that we're on the same level, we're on the same page, we all started from the same starting line, you know, like I think for me, it's like, I'm the kind of person that's like real, recognize real. And like where I grew up, like, yes, I went to these fancy educations. Yes, I did this, but at the end of the day, I'm an LA girl from the hood. Like, do not come for me because I'm like, I'm like that girl. So like, do not like compare yourself to my struggle. Do not compare it when I started at the start line and you literally started like a foot away from the finish line. You know, like I just feel like, and don't do that to me, and don't do that to everybody else, because you could deceive me, but don't do that to the other people that are literally using your advice, but you're lying to them this whole time. So I think for me, it's just like, as long as people are transparent and they're literally doing it with the right intention and the right reason, I'm all for it and I'm supportive. But if you're not, like, don't expect me to F with you, because I'm not. Unless you want me to call you out, because then I will, and then there'll be more problems. But
But so you heard it here first. Do not come for Julissa.
I can stay out of things. Like, I want to be on front row. As long as, you know.
Stay in your lane. Don't even try to come in my lane, because if you come for me, it's a whole nother problem.
Yeah, I just feel like I just don't, like, if someone's doing something and they're doing it the right way, I'm the first person to support and uphold and uplift and be like, you are my competition, but I don't care. Like, I have so much respect and admiration for you. Go, girl. But if someone is doing things and deceiving and being deceitful and like taking advantage of people, and nah, bro, like.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that 1000%. So let's get into some personal stuff. So what is your personal life like? Like, do you have time to date? How do you manage that? Are you even thinking about that kind of stuff right now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I find time. I think that when finding a partner, for like looking for a partner, it's important. What I learned is like, I have to look for somebody that's also busy. Like, if it's somebody who has like all this free time, it's like they're not gonna value when I make time. Because I always say, like, I don't have time, I make time. So if I make time for certain people and certain things, like don't like
take advantage.
Don't waste it. Like, please don't waste it, because I could be doing so many other things, but I'm here because I'm prioritizing this moment and this with you. So I think that like having other people, you know, that being with other people that like are also in the same place of like, they understand the value of time and they understand how important it is to live in the moment when you are able to make some time. I think that's so important.
Do you find that fellas are intimidated by you because of what you've been able to achieve?
Yeah, I think that a lot of time men, they are all for like, oh, an independent, like entrepreneurial, you know, successful woman, until they are with a successful woman and they sometimes have to share some light. They have to, you know, see how busy they are. That person isn't there at their beck and call. She's not available for just like all the things that they're used to from the girls that just have so much time. So I think that like, I don't know, it's just finding people like truly what they want, and to see what, if that's something that they're willing to compromise certain things for, you know?
Yeah, got it. So do you say you prioritize your business over your personal life?
Totally. Like, I think for me, I mean, I feel like I'm finally in a point where I'm able to find more balance, and I was able to, you know, have more me time. Like, I recently went to Paris for my birthday, and it wasn't, you know, just like, you know, it was mainly just work. Yeah, I visited some like, you know, wholesalers that we work with out there, but like it was mostly fun. And I hadn't done that in a really long time. For the first, you know, 2 years of the business, it was no days off, just work, work, work. And I think that I was prioritizing my business number one, and anybody that was trying to date me, like, I'm sorry, you're not gonna come first or second place. Like, you're gonna come like maybe a third or fourth, if that.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely was prioritizing that for sure for a while, and I think now I'm entering a space where I can have a more balanced life for sure.
Yeah. So this is a question that I ask all of my guests, and it is, why are you a woman who roars?
Because I am loud. Because I don't know how to put a plug in it. I am word vomit. I don't know how to tame anything. What you see is what you get. I am so unfiltered, and it is what it is. But I feel like I'm not here for games. I'm not here to be fake. I'm not here to pretend to be anybody that I'm not. I'm just what I am. And if people gravitate and they appreciate it, amazing. And if they don't, like, I'm not going to change myself for anybody else.
I love that. I love that answer. And I saw that come through very clear on your page, which is what gravitated me towards you, which is why I wanted to have you on the series. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Shout out to Lizette and your PR team, your amazing team who made this all possible. I appreciate you, ladies. And I appreciate you, and I hope to meet you next time in LA or when you come and visit New York.
Yeah, I go to New York pretty often, so hopefully when things settle, I can go visit out there again.
All right, sounds like a plan, Mama. Pleasure to talk with you. Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.